All right. All right. Well, it's your boy, Dustin, once again at the Flying Chariots to Rise podcast. And I got my friend Ian, and I met him back in Belleville when they had their UFO parade last year. And that was my first time ever going to any of those UFO parades. And it was pretty cool. And it was an honor to get to meet Ian, and he's a filmmaker and he's very interested in the UFOs. So, yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up?
Sure. My name is Ian Steven. I grew up in a bunch of different places. Moved around Wisconsin a lot, Indiana, Michigan, Florida, Kentucky, and I have started as a photographer, and I was trained as a photographer, and kind of moved into video because there's just so much more demand for video, and also you can tell more complicated stories with video than you can with stills. Um, that's kind of like where I am. And did you want to? What else did you want to? Maybe I missed the rest of your question.
Oh no, it's all right. I just wanted to hear more of your background and how you got into
Oh, into
just the filmmaking
UFOs.
and into UFOs at the same time. Yeah.
I think I may have been like made for this or almost like groomed for it because, my parents started me on Star Trek when I was very, very young.
Oh,
Like I started watching Star Trek when I was in kindergarten or something crazy.
that's cool.
And it was when I got to fourth grade that my mom sat me down and had the talk. And the talk was, well, your father and I were on a date once and we went outside with this other couple and there was a UFO in the sky.
Mm.
And I think you're about ready to read this book. And so she gave me this book called like 1947 Roswell Revealed. And it was like, it was like I don't even know if it was like a good book. I just remember like looking at the sketches of the bodies, and I was just completely captivated. And then I talked to a lot of people about it, and this is where it kind of comes and bites you in the butt. Is that other people then at school start telling you that's not real, and you're the crazy person. So like that's kind of how it usually goes. It hasn't really changed that much in
Yeah.
all those years. But I still think about that moment. It was really important to me that my mom told me about that and let me in on her secret too. And I think that kind of pushed me in this direction and got me started on my journey.
That is so cool. The fact that your parents are the one that kind of pushed that onto you, that is something I would do if I had children. Like you got to read Chariots of the Gods. It's
Yeah,
a must.
absolutely.
This will be your Bible. No, that's really cool. Yeah, tell me more about so um where in Wisconsin do you live right now?
I live in Madison,
Oh,
Wisconsin.
okay, you do. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice, nice. Then yeah, have you been to the other UFO parades in Wisconsin here? Like Elmwood
I've,
and Dundee's?
yeah, I've been to a couple. I definitely have gone to Benson's UFO Harbor when it was still open.
Yeah.
I went a
Mhm.
couple times, and then I went to the memorial that he had after he
Oh, did you?
passed. Um, met a bunch of interesting people there. It's the weirdest thing about the UFO parades is they're like, on one hand, you're really happy that there's a UFO parade, and on the other hand, for example, in the last one where I saw you, there was a sewage treatment truck, and it had plastic. I guess you'd call them grays, but they were all different color, and it said, "We will abduct your poo." And like on one hand, I'm like, well, that's kind of funny. On the other hand, it doesn't really it doesn't let anyone take it seriously. So there's
Sure,
that too. So I
sure.
don't know.
I think because there's been like years, like I think Elmwood is like the longest running UFO parade. They've been doing it since like the 1940s.
Oh,
So it's kind of like, so again, I think maybe the earlier parades where like they really decorated their cars more like flying saucers. And I think throughout the years it turned into more of a Halloween hoaxy, cheesier. But the fact that it's still UFO parades, it's to me, it means a lot because it's like it symbolizes the modern day cargo cult. Again, it's just that the fact that these three towns are impacted so heavily that they like have yearly celebrations of like seeing stuff in the sky. And it kind of reminds me of like the the original cargo cults during like World War II were fighting the Japanese, and some of those islands were inhabited by indigenous people, and we were set up shop, obviously, these bases and runways, and they'd never seen airplanes before, and they thought
Mm.
their ancestors brought these airplanes for them. So when the Americans left, they made runways out of the jungle, and they made bamboo straw fetishes of life-size airplanes, and they would
Yeah.
walk back and forth against the runway, trying to entice the next plane that flies by to land on their port to give them, all the cargo and stuff that, again, that whole concept
It's
stems
a
from.
crazy story, but true. I mean, it's a crazy story. The cargo cults in general, that story is just nuts. It takes a lot of thinking to think about our profound effect, like a more technologically advanced society can have on a less technologically advanced society. It's kind of crazy.
Well, yeah, and then you can even think further back, like ancient India, where they were like talking about these gods coming in these flying vehicles called Vimana, and other flying flaming chariots in these Bible stories. So it's kind of like, yeah, kind of these people, and like there's one ancient cargo cult that still exists today in Brazil
Really.
with the Kayapo Indians, and they have a yearly celebration and telling the story of interacting with this ancient astronaut that like landed on top of the mountain with smoke and fire, and it came down into their village, and he was in this bulbous suit with this helmet, glass helmet, and he had like a beard and white skin. And the brave Indians that were there, like try to fight him with like throwing spears and arrows at him, and like it would just turn into dust. And he kind of laughed, because these people, they gonna hurt me. And he had a weapon himself, and he pointed at a tree, and it exploded, and all the Indians kind of like, stepped away and ran away, and then it stood in their village for like days, and then like, the braver ones kind of like went up to it and put food in front of its feet, and then it started speaking their language, and then they were
Oh,
brave enough
wow.
to ask him, "How'd you start learning the language?" He's like, "Well, I had to sit here and learn for days listening to you guys in the bush, you know, thinking what your next plan is with me." And yeah, he ended up being like staying with the tribe, teaching them agriculture, mathematics, and astronomy. And they even have a school that still exists today. It's named after him. His name is Bep Karoti. And he would again, he stayed with them for years. He married one of the village women.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, and then I guess one day he went back up to the top of the mountain where he came from and blasted off to the sky, and said he promised one day to return. So again, these people yearly dress like Bep Karoti in this bulbous suit that looks like an astronaut, and they just sing this song circling him about him coming down and teaching them uh, basically survivals and living in the jungle, So yeah, the fact that story still exists, and there's still 150 cargo cults that like existed during that World War II time era that still
I
exists
now
today.
I completely understand what you're saying, but
Oh
yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
dude.
it is really amazing that Wisconsin has that. It has three sites like that. I see how you're tying that together. That's really does make Wisconsin feel kind of special. I mean, there are always a lot of there's a lot of people each year who claim to see UFOs. There are people, I've interviewed several people who are abductees or
Mhm.
from Wisconsin, and I don't know why Wisconsin. Maybe it's this way in every state, but I know that they visit here. One way or
Yeah,
another, they're visiting here. So you don't have to go to Roswell or something to have these kind of special moments. You can have them in most places on Earth, I would imagine. I don't know if there's any places that they don't fly over. You know.
right. And there's one spot here in Wisconsin that kind of reminds me of Bep Karoti in the story is um, the Man Mound, Baraboo. You've been there?
Not to that one. No, I've been to
So this is
something
an
else.
aerial shot.
Oh,
It's an Indian mound, but it's in this. I like to say it's an astronaut because it's so bulbous, and especially this head,
the head is crazy.
right? So there, a road was built back in the early 1900s, not knowing that it was a mound at the time. So now they actually paint it every year to make sure it's still being represented. And there are four more of these that got destroyed back in the 1900s. So
Hmm.
yeah, this is the last surviving one. but again, this they say that these Native Americans, if you read a little bit, it says they're representing a powerful God. And you're like, what powerful God? And especially they're trying to represent it like this to entice it, kind of like the Nazca lines, you know?
That's
So
incredible. Yeah, it is like our own Nazca lines. And if you can you go back to the other image of it? Um, Maybe this is just like the kind of the artist in me, but if you look at the image, it kind of feels like it emphasizes the legs. And I wonder, and in some form of art, you would emphasize the legs if someone were very tall. Like
yes.
maybe that's kind of like a signal to the someone looking at this. Oh, this person was very tall. That's why they had huge legs. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like maybe 10 foot tall, right in front of them.
Maybe that's
You
an
know,
interesting number you picked there.
yeah, right, because it's seems to be popping up everywhere, especially in malls.
In
But
malls
yes,
and
again, the fact that they're trying to entice this guy that they were interacting with, right, physically interacting with, to come back, because why to make it that big to be seen from the sky, you know? So I find that amazing. So I've been there a few times, so I recommend anybody and you to go check it out.
I'm 100% going as soon as it warms up. It's a little cold right
Yes,
now, but
yes, yes. And you went to see the legs in the road. Um, yeah, no, it's incredible. I met when I went there the second time. There was a Native American guy who was I think part of the organization for Indian mounds, and he had his drone that he was taking for photographs and video. Yeah, we just kind of talked to them. It's like, because tell him I came all the way from Madison just to come and look at this. And he was happy, hear that, that, you know, he has so much respect for that mound himself. So it's cool. It's very good timing, I'd say. Um, have you been to Dundy Mountain?
yes, but I'm hoping to camp there at some point, but I haven't actually. I didn't have a lot of time. It was more like I saw it on the way as I was traveling through.
Okay. Yeah, I ventured out there. Yeah, the campground on the base of the mountain is so dope. And that's like, who thought of that? Like, knowing that even that was like an ancient hotspot for UFOs, because the Native Americans were calling it Spirit Hill because there's so much weird activity happening even in ancient times. So the fact that we have like a campground on the base of this mountain is just like, you want people to catch something. That's the spot to be. Um, I've never seen anything personally down there. But it's just fun and beautiful to walk up the trail of the mountain and just crossing your fingers at the same time that something fly over our head or but yeah, I went to that bar, Benson's
Yeah,
Hideaway. Is that right?
yeah, absolutely.
I met, is it Bob? Am I right?
Paul, I think.
Is it Paul that owns it? Um, Either way, he had his photo album, and he was actually showing me that all the UFOs that he took over Long Lake. And I thought that was pretty impressive. And then the fact that that whole bar is decked out in like alien shit, like the
Oh,
scraps.
yeah. I mean, it's one of the most. It's closed now, but it was one of the most incredible places. Because it was people felt really comfortable sharing their stories. There was an area for people who were abductees that could talk to other abductees, and no one, if you weren't an abductee, you couldn't be there.
Yeah.
And I know that Paul had like a lot of photos of UFOs, and I heard a story when I was there about this woman being like, look, there's one, Paul. And he comes out and he looks, he goes, oh, that's a good one, and then goes back into the bar. He's like, I got work to do, because not because he didn't believe it or something, but he had seen so many that it's like someone saying, oh, look over there, there's a deer. Well, in Wisconsin, we see deer all the time. It's like,
Right.
okay, cool, it's a deer. I don't know.
No, you're exactly right. No, it's again, it was an honor to get to see some of those. And then again, the people that were there, we're just talking UFOs, like stories of UFOs and stuff like that. Because how can you not when you walk in there? Like this, the
Oh
old,
yeah, yeah.
it made it feel like in like old X-Files episode when you walk in there, like you ready to, Mulder was ready to talk to this dude and shit. Like, all right, I know what you saw. No, that's pretty cool. And then yeah, I never made it to Elmwood because that's kind of too far. It's like 2 hour, 2.5 hour drive. That shouldn't stop me. It shouldn't, but I'm
Well,
being lazy.
maybe is it still around the Elmwood?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's the best one because they actually have all around the town. They have these signs and plaques of all the UFO sightings there, like their property, and um, I think there is a respectable sheriff that got was one of the first ones to see the UFO back in the 1950s and got blasted with a blue beam and then died a year later. So his family blames that UFO for his death.
I
So yeah,
mean,
crazy.
just before I came on this, I was on Reddit in the Alien forum, and someone supposedly has notes from the classified meeting in the skiff this week, and one of the bullet points, there's only 5 bullet points on there, but one of the bullet points was Americans have died from their encounters with these beings.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to believe it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
always know if it's provoked, like maybe, it doesn't say how they died. Maybe they shot a missile at something and then said, okay, well, I'll shoot back. I have no idea. So,
I
but
guess, yeah,
yeah,
you're
I mean,
exactly right.
the blue beam probably did happen, and it's very unfortunate. But who knows what really went down.
Yeah. Well, there's that one case in Mexico too, where they um that crash landed and there was some dead and alive aliens, and that was crouching by the wall. And that one guy brought it like injured alien. He carried it, and he said he got covered in some kind of like gel and shit.
Yeah,
And he died shortly after that because there's like radiation or
I just
something like
watched the
that.
documentary
And
on this, and I can't think of what it's
yeah,
the
and this
var
and
var
the
something.
smell is so bad, like stayed
Varginha.
around. Yeah, and it stayed around
Varginha.
forever and shit. So
Oh yeah, the
yeah.
smell was horrible, and it made me
Mhm.
wonder it if the smell was so bad and chemically, it makes me wonder if they came from a different environment, like maybe a planet with an
Sure.
ammonia that they breathe instead of oxygen or something. I think that was kind of hinted at in the documentary I watched about it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, absolutely possible. You really, I mean, the thing is this kind of reminds me of when the Western people came to the Americas and gave all these people
Smallpox.
diseases and
Hmm.
smallpox.
Hmm.
Like it's one of the drawbacks of running into an alien life form is it could just give you a virus that your body's like, what is this? Ah, you
Yeah,
know.
that's why a lot of them are in suits themselves, yeah, no, it's amazing. And then like kind of makes you think about Travis Walton too, when he got blasted with that laser. Those aliens knew they kind of fucked up and it's like, we have to take this dude and fix his ass because there's nothing on earth that's gonna fix him. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah, absolutely,
he,
absolutely.
he had to fucking stay on that shit for 5 days just to get fixed.
That
Oh
story's
man.
crazy. He was on Joe Rogan eventually. He
Mm.
the movie version is not as supposedly
No, no, it's not. Have you
not
seen
the
it?
most accurate.
Have you seen it? The movie?
I did when it came out. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But what he said about the movie version is it's extremely accurate up to the point where there's the UFO.
Yeah.
Everything after that is pure Hollywood. So
Yeah.
don't believe that. Like
Yeah.
I'll tell you what really happened.
Sure. Sure. And that's cool that he even did the movie in general, even though
Yeah.
he kind of gave him the freedom to do what they did. I really wish they did it the way he explained it, because the fact that they were interacting with like human ETs and these, glass helmets and their blonde hair, blue eyed, and there's female versions too. When he finally came out of the UFO and he realized he was in this giant hangar, and then a bunch of females and males got around him and grabbed him and threw something on his face, and he was knocked out after that. And then he woke up on the street seeing the UFO above him, and it like flew off. And he's like, "Holy fuck, the fuck!" And I think he was naked, and he ran into the fucking telephone booth and called his brother, and his brother didn't even fucking believe that it was him. He's like, "Dude, I'm fucking over here, you fucking." And then he had like crazy PTSD right away, like just
Oh
couldn't,
yeah.
couldn't even talk straight, couldn't fucking look anybody, screaming, weird shit. And yeah, I like his old interviews. If you try to find some of those ones in the 70s or yeah, 80s,
I'll
those
have to
ones,
look those up.
yeah, those are pretty cool. Because I feel like those are like more fresh in memory in his head. The older he gets, it's kind of like it seems like the double. Not saying that the story changes at all, but maybe like his theories of why he's being taken in general, and it's kind of like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it
no,
was
I mean, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, like that's not actually, everyone always like thinks that's the gotcha moment or something. But I mean, if you think
no,
about it, like how you felt, 2 years out of high school and how you feel,
sure,
15 years out of high school, you think about those events differently,
sure.
you know,
And
and that's
he passed
normal.
the lie detector test too, so it's like another clarification, and his six buddies too. So
Well, I mean, the only thing that annoys me, not about him, but in general, is like in pop culture, there's always this like kind of please abduct me kind of like comics and things, or like take me, like you'll see shirts and things. And I'm always like, it's not the thrill ride that you think it is. It's everyone I know who has been abducted, it does not enjoy it, but they don't usually like, they usually have health problems, for example, physical and mental health problems. They don't think it's like torture, but it's like the worst trip to the doctor and dentist office you've ever been. Like it's
mhm.
just not, it's not something you want to do. And I feel like I don't know why I let it bug me when I see those kind of shirts, but it just does. It just gets under my skin for some reason, you know?
Right. But it's kind of funny. It's like the more of the 50s when we saw more of the human ETs. And we still see the human ETs, but I feel like those are the ones that are less scary and less are more approachable and less, like they're not coming at you. Especially when Travis Walton, like when he finally saw a human, he went to that human. It's like, yo, what the fuck is going on here? And felt more relaxed in a sense and more relieved and let this guy take him down out of the UFO and into this hangar. This, I guess, the human face and you know helps.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And I mean, of course, if you watch any number of Star Trek episodes, there's a lot of
sure.
times where they come down and they disguise themselves as the local people. And
Hmm.
I kind of wonder if that happens with
Yeah, that could
these
be.
visitors, some way they disguise, I don't know how, probably some form of technology, but you know,
Yeah,
makes you feel more comfortable talking to a person rather than not a person.
it's very true.
you know.
Um, yeah. Do you have you known any? I don't know, because I know a lot of Native Americans here and just know the shit, and I know a lot of Native Americans keep a lot of those stories to themselves. It's
Yeah,
just it sucks because I know they have the juiciest shit. And
I, I've been I do know one actually. I do have a
oh,
story
cool.
about that. I was I'm not going to say exactly how I know this person because I don't want to out
Sure,
them. I want to out her because it's not fair.
sure, yeah.
But I was photographing this woman in a she's a Native American person, and I was photoing her for a magazine. And I did a bunch of sketches of what I thought the photo shoot was going to be like, but in my sketchbook I had sketches of UFOs for like a logo for my show. And she's like, oh, look at those are UFOs, right? And I'm like, yep. And she's like, oh, we call them the sky people, we have so many stories. And I'm like, and so I contacted her twice after, and she just didn't want to tell me those stories. I wouldn't go on camera, I didn't want to do any of it. So I'm like, they have those stories. I'm not going to hear them, but they're there.
Your snowy white skin doesn't help.
I know. I know. And like I get it. I get it. It's
No,
like,
and that's actually one thing that they should just keep for themselves because if you took everything else, so fuck
sure,
everybody
sure.
else.
And I'm not,
Shit.
I don't begrudge anyone for it,
No,
their
for
own
sure.
cultural heritage or
No,
something.
no, no.
So
I just love the fact that they know the truth. They know what's up. That's hell yeah.
it's really funny because like in many ways I'm kind of the opposite of you, because like it feels like you've very much studied ancient history and native storylines and things like that.
Mhm,
And I've tried to focus on modern, and
mhm,
I just feel like um it's almost like when you start learning a subject matter, because you're learning history, right? And any real historian doesn't learn all history everywhere. Like there are people who study, the French Revolution, or Civil War historians or something. I try to just kind of focus on things after 1947 in America, is where I try to kind of focus. And it's just because like you got to pick you got to pick your specialty. You can't be good at everything. You can't know everything. It's just not going to be possible. And it's okay. I'm thrilled we have people who study. I love these stories of the tribes and things. I think that's fantastic. I just haven't studied all this. I'm like just trying to catch up,
Oh yeah, yeah. There is a shit ton of stories. That's why I like going back and looking back at some of these bizarre stories that they just couldn't like that that wood print in Germany where like there's like a aerial battle back in like the 1500s that these people witnessed. And they had
Oh
like the
yeah.
circles, and then they had like some of them would crash with smoke coming out from it and stuff like that. And like the fact that they fucking recorded that and there were so many eyes on that.
It's
And
it's a
they just,
very, very detailed mural.
yes.
It's a very, very detailed mural.
Yeah.
Um,
So it makes you wonder, like being that detailed and then the story that comes with it. And I heard there's another story too, not too long, not too um, far down the line of that time era. There was another one, I think it was in England, where there's just a bunch of circles in the sky too, and people were witnessing that. That's just gnarly. So again, I like to bring these old stories that just didn't have the vocabulary to describe exactly what they're describing, and kind of bring the
yeah,
modernize it a little bit, and like, well,
yeah, that German story too. It almost sounds like that the ships that were in the sky were actually fighting.
yes, they
Like
were.
yeah, which is I mean that'd be really scary. It'd be scary now. Can
Yeah,
you imagine if there were
yeah,
spaceships flying around shooting each other? I think that'd be scary.
yeah. You know where that Serpent Mound is in Ohio?
In Ohio,
No, is it Ohio?
I don't. I know
I
there's
think
so many different shaped burial mounds in Wisconsin that I lose
it's not
track
in
of.
Wisconsin. I
Oh,
think
it's
it's
not
in
in
Ohio.
Wisconsin. Okay.
No, it's Ohio.
Okay.
Well, anyways, technically there was an aerial battle back in the day. Indians witnessed it, and they talked about those like the reptilians versus the Nordics or something like that. So again, that's always that story too of these benevolent and evil ETs that have this agenda on Earth they're fighting for. Or they're not like, again, not necessarily all fighting over Earth,
Oh,
like
sure, sure,
in our sky, but
sure.
they'll take ther battles up to space and say, all right, let's duke it out there because we are fighting for this Earth, and we probably blow it up in the mix of fighting each other anyways. you know
I mean, people fight all over the world. I mean, the superpowers have long had proxy wars, using other people to fight or just, fighting over little pieces of land just so they don't have to fight back at home. So it doesn't surprise me that there could be something like that going on here.
Yeah.
Speaking of, like, you've kind of like alluded to this already today, but going back to that, the supposed notes from the skiff, you've mentioned the reptilians. You've mentioned like a human-looking species. I think you mentioned one other too. We talked about the grays a little bit. The notes from the skiff, the classified meeting. Now, this is kind of like a dumbed down classified meaning. It didn't give a lot of information, but it gave some. They mentioned 5 species that we have biologicals from. In other
Mm,
words, like bodies, bodies would be biologicals or maybe something like that.
yeah.
Parts
Oh,
or so I just thought that was really interesting. It's
it
like
is.
I know the Ronald Reagan was supposedly briefed. And I mean, it's hard to verify a lot of this information just because it's like way above top secret. But Ronald Reagan was briefed on 5 species. So I kind of, hearing that number again this week, I was like, I don't know if that's true, but maybe it might be. It's consistent at least, and consistent's a good start.
Yeah.
So
And there's rumors too that the reptilians were fucking around with the Nazis and giving them technology, and we talk about the bell, the Nazi
oh
bell.
yeah.
And again, it's just, I love how the Nazis are kind of sci-fi at the same time. When you think about them, it's just like they're so out of this world. Like they were fucking trying to find every ancient relic on the earth. They had people scouring everywhere. They went to Antarctica 3 times, like major, military events going down. They were making bases, and they actually had, was it project high jump that America had to go fucking fight the Nazis down in the South Pole.
I mean, World War II is kind of impressive too. You know, it was a race to split the atom. The Germans were
Yeah,
very close.
yeah,
Um, and I don't know if you were like most Americans and last summer watched Oppenheimer, but I would recommend most people, you know, you
yeah,
do. And of course they split the atom because they wanted to get ahead of the Germans. What a horrible, horrible like position to be in, you know,
yeah,
what a horrible position to be in.
yeah,
But you know, yeah, they during the war, the major superpowers left no stone unturned. And if I don't know much about the German connection to potential ETs, I don't know much about that. But it doesn't surprise me that they would, if someone offered them help, they probably would have taken it.
yeah. Why wouldn't they?
They would
Especially
leave no
something
st-
so benevolent or
Yeah, I
something
mean,
so powerful. And yeah, I don't know. Very, very mysterious. And it makes you wonder too, where the hell did Hitler go? They never really found his body. You know,
well,
there's theories that he went to South America and
I mean,
the
I
South
mean the
Pole,
mainstream version is that he killed himself with his, I don't know if that was his wife or his girlfriend. I don't remember which.
his
It's
wife.
might be his
Yeah, I
wife.
know this stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I know the original.
That's the original story. I don't know.
But that's when like the Russians like said they had his body and they ended up having the skull of like a woman or some shit. So then again, I like it makes it even more mysterious that even some of these, not just him that escaped or never found, was other Nazi high ranking officers, like Mangala and
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's weird that there are still questions that are unanswered at all about World War II because
oh yeah,
it's been almost 100 years and it's not quite, but we're getting close. And it's weird that there's still there's it's still such a, you know, part of language. Like, you know, the word Nazi is just such a, it's still a very common part of English. You probably can't go a week without hearing someone compare a rule or an unjust thing in the
or
world to
or Trump
Nazis,
or
or
Trump.
what, yeah, you know, someone mentioning it in some way. It's just interesting, the staying power of that war, really, in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's weird. Everybody wants to be a dictator.
Not everybody.
I know, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm like, no.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I know, I
I'm
know.
trying to put some light on this. But no, it's a crazy world that we live in, and the Russians have a lot of secrets and know a lot of the shit too, and reverse engineering. And I can only imagine what kind of major cities they have underground too. Because why wouldn't they be digging underground? They've been doing that shit since World War One. And those
Yeah.
people are war. That's war is kind of like embedded in their culture. It's like they're so proud of World War II. Like it's they celebrate it every year, like we do, I guess. But
Yeah, I mean, Russia and China are definitely in on the reverse engineering game for sure. There was last week, gosh, it's just, as I said, I feel like I've been getting hit with a UFO fire hose since, like, you know, 4 months ago, just trying to keep up on everything.
I know,
But
right?
David Grush gave like a PowerPoint presentation to people in New York last week, kind of outlining some stuff that he hasn't said publicly yet. There's stuff coming out. And one of the claims in there is what we're talking about right now. And that's that a foreign adversary, one of America's adversaries, has threatened several times to spill the beans on the UFOs. Like, just be like, they're going to come out and just say what it is. And I just was like, wow, that was just such an interesting thing to see in his presentation, that he has intelligence on that. And I'm like, wow, quite a threat too. It's like, well, I don't, it didn't say who it was. I guess if I had to guess, it's probably Russia or China. It's probably Russia. If I
Yeah.
had to put money on it, I'd put it on Russia.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there was an
You know what?
article. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say
There,
what I like about the Russian space program is they call themselves cosmonauts, and
yeah.
the fact that they actually believe that they actually came from the stars and they're returning home. That's
Well,
like
let's,
another like ancient astronaut aspect too, or like we're like this crash landed race of ETs that lost all the technology after we crash landed and probably had wars with each other because this idiot crashed into this fucking planet, or whatever.
That's really poetic. I didn't know that. That's really poetic. I love it. I love the idea of
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. I am poetic. I am a poet. I'm a rapper. But yeah, it's cool. No, I love to think about these aspects. That's why, like, again, you kind of think outside the box and like the correlations, and the people didn't have the vocabulary to really write down. And again, it bothers me a lot too that ancient Egypt, they especially the pyramids, and like, not saying that aliens built them. I'm saying that humans did build them, but it had technology given from the gods,
Mm,
and the gods were there physically, watching over them,
sure.
and I'm sorry, but what healthy slave are you whipping on the back to drag 80-ton boulders 20 miles across the sand in different terrains? And like, and you look at their toolbox at the same time and you see fucking chicken bones and dental floss, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Right. And like, you think there'd be too much argument to like, we can use a smaller stone, dude. It'll be there for another 2 million years. You know what I'm saying? No one's moving it.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Like the pyramids too. Whenever we see the pyramids now, we don't see them how they were even 4,000 years ago or 3,000
No,
years ago. They were
no.
covered in this like beautiful stone, and they were extremely reflective and gorgeous.
Had gold on top of it too.
I mean, the fact that they've lasted this long is absolutely incredible, but they were even more beautiful in their day. They really were. So
Right.
I have no idea how they were made. I have no clue. I I'm
But
always
again,
like
sorry.
careful to not be like an alien did it, because like I don't know.
Mhm.
And I also don't ever want the Egyptians being like, you're just saying that because you're like a white guy and don't want us to have built this on our own. And
No,
I don't have any evidence. As I said, I don't study the ancient stuff. So, I listen to people like you on these kind of issues. I'm like, well,
sure.
what does it say? So, you know,
No, and I just find it so weird that we put what they were worshiping as gods, and like physical gods, obviously. Some of these, like cats, they were worshiping, for God's sakes,
mm,
physical beings, and um they write it right next to what, like, we did build these, but we were instructed by these gods, and they tell the whole stories and how they were interacting with these gods, and like, then they get mythonized, like nowadays, right? It's just legends of what these things were. But again, it's like they came in these ships, these flying ships, and from the sky. Again, it's just, I just want to smack some motherfuckers. It's not hard. And like, even like um ancient Sumerian, like
oh
the
yeah, yeah,
Anunnaki. Oh
yeah.
my God. Can you, that's poetic right there. The
Yeah.
whole story of like how that all came about.
And
And
they're pretty,
yeah,
I mean, those stories are pretty explicit too. Like they make it very clear that, these are beings from above. Like it doesn't seem like it's just like a metaphor or something. It seems like they're trying to tell you what really happened. I don't know if that's true, but I mean, it's what it sounds like if I read a translated script of it. So,
yeah. And a lot of these gods are promising the day to return. All do. They always say, one day I'm coming back. And that's why I love the Hopi Indians. It's because they got the same message from their 200 gods that they physically interacted with. And once they left, they started making dolls of the Kachina so they could pass on to their kids in the future. So when these things do come back, they're not going to be scared out of their fucking minds, because they do look crazy, bulbous and, very elaborate looking creatures. But again, like being comforted by having your parents telling you the stories and actually seeing it as a child, I just think that's beautiful and poetic in a sense. And it's a cargo cult. It's the
yeah,
thing that continues to happen.
it's kind of like we kind of have come full circle. Really, is kind of like going back to my parents telling me about
Exactly.
their story,
Yes.
and just
No.
being able to kind of control your sense of fear, and being kind of open to the fact that you're not the only life form in the universe, which seems an insane idea anyway.
Yeah.
um I mean, it really does. So, and
Yeah.
there's nothing like, what I always tell people is that, if there really was an advanced species that had visited Earth, which I believe there has been, it would be trivial to destroy Earth. if you can already travel across the galaxy, certainly you have some weapons and you could use them if you really wanted to. And so they don't. And that's really like a wonderful thing to think about, is like they don't. So they must see some value in Earth and some value in us.
Yeah.
And I think for what we do is we also have to kind of just push a little bit of hope into people too. And not everything is an Independence Day alien, if you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to me.
No, and you're exactly right. And I think religious leaders are starting to steer towards, I think the Vatican was talking about aliens a few years ago, to saying like, if they do come, we'll welcome them as we do with our, religion, like they still stick to it with their guns, but they're like, we'll accept these
They
people,
got to
our
push
creatures.
the Catholicism. I
Exactly.
mean, there's no there. I mean, the funny thing too about that, like, I mean, that sounds kind of funny, but you know, when one religion like meets a new people, sometimes some of those new people do adopt it. I'm not saying that we're going to convert the aliens to Catholicism, but there will be a cultural exchange of some sort. Just
Yeah.
saying, maybe some
Yeah.
ideas will get passed around.
Right. Or I think just having the Vatican talk about ETs is maybe soften the blow when it does happen. So when they come running to the the churches asking questions like crazy, maybe it's less questions because they're like, well, we kind of told you that
We kind of warned you
they're
about
they're
this.
kind of out there. And the Vatican basement must have these secrets. They probably have them. They know what the aliens are about.
I mean, honestly,
the
if
flying
any,
the fallen angels, man.
I mean, I think it's sometimes it's lost on people how powerful the Vatican was for, I don't know, about 5 centuries. Like being, kings and queens of Europe would write to the Vatican asking permission to do things. Every single country would have a liaison to the Catholic Church. The idea that, if there was like a really old UFO crash, I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't have any evidence of one, but if there was, the Vatican would have known about it. It just would be impossible that wouldn't have known about it.
Yeah.
And getting back to everyone's favorite, character that you've probably heard way too much about is David Grush last year. Before the hearing, he mentioned in one of his interviews the 1935-ish, 1933-ish recovery that involves the Vatican. I don't know if you've heard this crazy UFO story. Have you?
No, no, no. Tell me more.
So it's interesting because he mentioned it as like he's like, oh, there's that Italian story, and then the UFO community just went crazy because there's this UFO story from the early 1930s, right before World War II, where Mussolini's people find an abandoned craft and they think it's English or it's French, but then they realize that it's probably not either of them. It's just too advanced, and so they store it in a warehouse. And of course, they're Italians, and the Catholic Church finds out about it. And then as Mussolini comes into power, the Vatican does an end run and talks to American Catholics, and gets people in our government to retrieve the craft with the Vatican's help to just get it out of the hands of Mussolini because they don't like Mussolini.
Right.
And that's like supposedly one of the first recovered crafts. It's just this crazy story. I think the New York Post did a story about it, of all papers, but just like wild stuff. But the Vatican knows probably way more on aliens and other topics too. Like if there's anything to any cryptid or ghosts or something, they've seen it. They know about it.
Yeah.
They're like the secret library that knows all the dirt,
Yeah. Yeah. It makes you wonder too, like where the gargoyles come from, like these like crazy creatures that are here to protect this church, and they're fucking looking gnarly themselves. It's like, oh snap.
That's a really good question. I have no idea. That's actually scary to think about.
Yeah, right. It's just like, and these things are supposed to ward off bad spirits and shit. Hmm. They kind of look like the demonic ones themselves. I don't know. It's just that, and I just love the old stories that were taken out of the Bible. Those that tells more truth, especially the Book of Enoch. And that's just such a beautiful story. And he's related to Noah. He's like Noah's uncle or some shit like that. And and the fact that Enoch lived up to fucking like I don't know 250 years, and so did Noah. So it makes you wonder these people are kind of like the hybrids that kind of had something special about these people. But again, in the Book of Enoch, they have real detailed stories of the gods fighting amongst themselves about the technology they wanted to give to humans at the time, like Prometheus and the fire, right? And Prometheus getting punished by being chained to a rock and having a fucking eagle fucking eat his liver every fucking
Oh yeah, yeah.
day. Anyways, same story with the Catholic with Enoch with these 200 angels that disagreed with God. It's like, dude, no, these beautiful earth women that we like to fuck and they're smart enough. Like the have you never heard the story of the Tower of Babel?
Oh yeah, I know that one.
That one's so fucking good because the fact that they had technology enough to fucking build this humongous thing to this flying saucer that was flying up in the sky, and that was God saying, "My jealous ass," and like, and that these humans are too smart right now. They're like getting godlike. So let me just, okay, everybody's sleeping. Let me just fuck with their minds, and then they're sleeping, and then they wake up. Everybody was speaking all different languages, all babble. Like no one can understand each other. They couldn't work on the building anymore because no one understood each other. They couldn't work together, and they got mad, and they all kind of spread out throughout the earth. And they
Yeah,
had, and that's how everybody's still beefing with each other with fences and shit.
I always found that story so strange too. It's such a weird story in the Bible, you know.
And why would God be so jealous? Such a petty
You
human
know,
emotion.
I got to tell you the Old Testament God is kind of vicious. He kind of is. He's kind of not the God. The New Testament God is like this God of forgiveness and Jesus and all of this, life everlasting. And the Old Testament God is mean as hell. I don't know why. He just was.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe there's something else to it. So who
But
knows?
why? I feel like these stories are very important, though. Like, why were they in there in the first place? And then they were a lot older, right? The fact they were
Right. Yeah.
fucking like from the get go. I want to listen to this shit from like especially with the Egyptians too. Like, again, they got mythanized because they can't really explain the half heads of animals and humans and other shit. And I don't know. And then like the fact that I love India. India, like they still physically believe in these physical gods that come in vehicles and stuff like that. And there's hundreds of them. They have blue skin. That should say something, right? Like
Oh
they're
yeah, I
alien.
mean, no, no, yeah,
Holy
totally,
Christ.
totally. I think there's a lot to the India stuff too. I really do. There's that one's a pretty deep well to drink from if you really get into it.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Like the more Boruto is like one of my favorite stories. Like the gods fighting amongst each other and stuff too.
well,
And like with nuclear bombs, and you see like they actually have detailed descriptions in their holy books of like um radiation poison where they pregnant women's babies would die and elephants would be burning and dying and radiation with their fingernails and toenails would fall out and shit. And yeah, man, the fact that it's such detailed descriptions of like this aftermath of explosions from these gods, right?
yeah. I always kind of wonder like what's like the threshold point for people to start believing in some of this stuff, and it's always kind of weird to me because some people just they can read it in a religious text and they can believe it, and other people need some sort of scientific thing, and others just always seem to find this invisible hand is manipulating they just won't believe anything. Like no matter what you post, no matter what picture you show or who's being interviewed, they just won't believe it. I mean, unless till maybe like an alien moves next door or something. I don't. Some people just I don't think they are open to this idea at all, and it's just too hard for them to see that the universe is not just humans. Like that's just too hard for them to understand. Even though they can look up in the night sky and they can see all those stars and all those stars have planets, they just can't believe that it's just not them. I don't know why.
Yeah. Either there's a shit ton of aliens out there or there's none. So it's equally scary.
It is
But
equally
again,
scary. It's totally
but
equally scary.
again, that's why it's not too far fetched that they were here from the fucking get go, man. Like the fact that we don't know what the fuck is in our fucking oceans. We only know 10%, and we know so much about outer space. That should just fuck you up right there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
No,
mean,
it's whew. Because this could be alien bases all down there. It could be a whole hollow Earth where they have like these tunnel systems that go from deep from the oceans.
I
Oh
mean,
man,
there is a big movement right now to kind of talk about the idea that they may not be extraterrestrial, that they've been here for a very long time.
yeah,
There's a big movement that idea has caught a lot of fire in UFO chatter. Maybe the last few years is that, there was actually a paper about this that came out at the last week of December, and it's 13 pages long. It talks about like it's from like a biologist perspective, like why they believe that these beings live here. It's just because the sightings are so routine and they don't seem to be doing anything. Like if you just were visiting a place, you act very differently than what your house is. You know what I'm saying? Like how you act on vacation or when you're visiting your friend, across the country is very different than like your behavior around your own house or going to the grocery store and picking up food. And they're much closer to going to the grocery store, picking up food, just doing a few errands and, bringing the car back into the garage. That's kind of like their vibe lately. And so it kind of lends itself to they've been here for a long time. This is just this is their home too.
yeah,
So
yeah. Or it could be interdimensional, where this Earth is this interdimensional place that they can just kind of go in and out through, and vortexes and portals. That's another thing with Florida, having this portal and shit. And that's another. I don't know if you heard about the portal situation where like
I
this
don't think I
woman.
have. I'm sorry. I'm like, I don't know about the Florida portal. Is this like a Disney thing? No, I'm
Well,
just joking.
that's no, it's more at the. No, this is at the mall that happened like a week ago, or whatever.
Oh,
That was a part of this. So this woman got the correlations of the mall, like the longitude and latitude of the mall, and then put it in reverse, like the numbers in reverse, and then she found out that it directed her to the South Pole.
okay.
So, and she's just
Oh,
saying
I
that
see what you're
either
saying.
portals usually have a point A to point B. So
Hmm.
it's kind of like, and there's so many theories about alien bases in the South Pole. So, who knows? Who
Who
knows? It's
knows?
just, again, it's fun to think about
It is fun to think
because
about.
we're so close because Congress is talking about this. It's in the newspapers today. um,
No, it's
yeah,
it's very real. It's very, very, very real. And it's finally being handled. And the thing I tell people is that whether they are like first off, I always tell people UFOs are 100% proven now. They're a known thing in the sky.
yeah,
And so either they're enemies or I mean they're either foreign enemies or they're not foreign enemies and they're non-human intelligence, but they're there. Like that part's not debatable. The what are we going to do about it? And are we going to start actually having this conversation as adults? And are we going to start actually treating this like something that is a bit of a problem and also just a bit of an education moment? It could be an opportunity. People need to see it as an opportunity as well. I was telling one of my friends the other day, who said we can't, do trade with them or sell them things? Nobody said
that's
we
true.
can't do that, So
Well, watch, humans will be on that list. So yeah, we want your children for for yeah, their spinal
well, I
fluid.
hope I hope not. I hope that's not true.
No, yeah, right. The adrenochrome.
Yeah. Oh my God.
We want the ambrosia.
Sometimes I wish I didn't know what you were talking about all the time because
Oh, come on. Yes, you do. Uh, no, that's awesome. We're that was about an hour. So yeah, why don't we wrap it up by why don't you
sure.
tell some people by if you have any contact information, or if you have like a website, or
At the
if you
moment,
have
the best place to reach me is just on Alien Wisconsin on Facebook, and I'm going to be posting a new episode hopefully tomorrow or by the time this airs. And I do cover the Miami Mall as well. I have a different take on it.
sure.
And we have a large segment on the squid and a few other interesting things, including a Wisconsin story. So I would love to have be back and maybe talk some more about that some other time. Okay.
Yes, because I'm sure my colleague Daniel would love to talk to you because,
Sure.
yeah,
Absolutely.
you're very, very interesting. So thank you again for spending some time with me and stick with me for 2 more minutes. Okay.
Sure. Sounds great.